News coming in at the top of the hour, K. Kavita versus ED legal battle now intensifies. Supreme Court issues a notice on K. Kavita's plea challenging her arrest in the Delhi excise policy case. Supreme Court tells Kavita's counsel that the matter will be heard on merits. ED has been given time to respond. The Supreme Court has directed the trial court to hear Kavita's bail plea expeditiously. So that's the latest that's coming in from the Apex Court. Remember, it was last week that K. Kavita, BRS leader MLC, had been arrested in the Delhi excise policy case. She went to the Supreme Court against it. Now, the Supreme Court has issued notice on K. Kavita's plea challenging her arrest in the Delhi excise policy case. The Supreme Court has told Kavita's counsel that the matter will be heard on merits. The Enforcement Directorate has been given time to respond. The Supreme Court now directs the trial court to hear Kavita's bail plea expeditiously. K. Kavita, BRS MLC over there at the Rouse Avenue Court on March 15, a day after she was arrested from her residence in Hyderabad and then brought to Delhi. She has been in ED custody since. Nalini, my colleague, is joining me over the phone line. Nalini, what more can you tell us about what the Supreme Court has said in the case of Kavita's plea challenging her arrest in the Delhi excise policy case?
Well, Parliament, Kapil Sibal, senior advocate who was representing K. Kavita, has told the Supreme Court that he is very pained to see what is happening in the country, specifically referring to the manner in which all of these opposition leaders from various political parties are getting picked up by enforcement directorate and other probe agencies. But what the Supreme Court has told him is that he cannot get emotional, that the Supreme Court is in the process of even hearing the review petition challenging the judgment in the PMLA case, which essentially determines the powers of the ED. And he said that in the meantime, if Kapil Sibal has to approach for bail for K. Kavita, he has to go back to the trial court, because that is what the due process is. A notice has been issued on Kavita's plea challenging her arrest in the excise policy case. So it claimed that the Enforcement Directorate had specifically given an assurance before the Supreme Court that they will take no coercive action against her. And keeping that in mind, she should not have been arrested. But at the same time, the Supreme Court has not granted her any interim release right now. They have issued notice. They've given 6 weeks' time for all the parties to file their response and rejoin her. And it remains to be seen what happens. A big statement that was made by Kapil Sibal, however, is that in the history of the Supreme Court, this will not be remembered as a golden period, is what Kapil Sibal today told the Supreme Court after it denied K. Kavita interim release in the excise policy case. So that's a major statement, a very loaded statement coming in from the senior counsel. It remains to be seen what happens in the Arvind Kejriwal case once the matter is taken up by the same bench. But for now, Kapil Sibal made a very big statement before the Supreme Court during the hearing in the K. Kavita case.
Absolutely. A big statement being made by Kapil Sibal during the hearing in the Supreme Court. Nalini, as you said, when history of this court is written, this period will not be golden. Was he specifically referring to the fact that the Supreme Court did not grant immediate interim relief to Kavita, in fact, in the case of her plea? What happens next as far as this case is concerned? We're, of course, tracking two cases at the same time. This is, of course, Kavita's plea before the Supreme Court. There will be Arvind Kejriwal's plea before the Supreme Court as well. But in this case, what goes on next?
Well, we are expecting for the bench to take up Arvind Kejriwal's plea on an immediate basis, because the directions for that have come in from the Chief Justice of India himself. When the matter was listed for mentioned for urgent hearing, I beg your pardon, before the Chief Justice of India, the CJI said that the special bench that is hearing K. Kavita's case will take up the matter immediately. Those were the CJI's words. And so we are expecting for the Supreme Court to take up this matter on an urgent basis. But for now, the bench will have to wait and see exactly how soon can they be ready with the files and all of the documents, and the lawyers can be present in court to make the arguments. But there is no doubt about the fact that today itself the Supreme Court will be hearing Arvind Kejriwal's plea challenging his arrest as well in the Delhi excise policy case. As to whether or not that happens before or after Kejriwal is produced in Rouse Avenue Court and the hearing on his custody is going on, is something that remains to be seen, because in case there is some relief from him from the Supreme Court before any order is given on the custody, then that will mean very good news, not just for Arvind Kejriwal, but for the entire Aam Aadmi Party that is up in arms right now trying to show their strength protesting against Arvind Kejriwal's arrest.
That's the big breaking that we're taking at this point of time. Nalini, thank you so much for joining us with all of those details from the Supreme Court.